Hello again, Tammy here, and we are now in part 3 of a 5-part series on influencers, what they really want, and how to get unstuck. So, part 3 is all about assessing your influence and stakeholder power, and also understanding the influence and attitude continuum, or influence and interest continuum. They call them a few different things. So this session is going to go over how to do a detailed stakeholder assessment and really analyze who you have in your realm that are influencers and those that are not necessarily, but all have an interest in whatever you're doing, whether it's a project, a program, you name it, an initiative. And the second part of this is all around the influence and attitude continuum. And so really understanding that and understanding how that continuum affects assessing your influencers and how to leverage them best. So I hope you enjoy. All right, once you've had the interview and you've discovered and gotten underneath kind of where their heads are out at, then you want to start thinking about the influencing and attitude spectrum. And this is where you categorize them. So now that you've gotten to know them a little bit better, or maybe you've known them for a while and you've gotten underneath some of their concerns, how do you categorize them? Because this will help how you determine how you engage them going forward. So I always like to think of it as a net promoter score. It measures someone's likelihood of supporting your initiative and their ability to influence for or against it. So it's kind of like a customer net promoter score with your business. But I look at it similarly because you want to treat it the same. It's just as important. So you have the attitude influence continuum here. So we're always looking at influence on the vertical. And then on the horizontal, we're looking at their attitude toward your initiative. So if we take a look at this, we are really looking for the top right quadrant. So is that person an influencer? You've probably determined if they are or not by now. It should look like this. They should be vocally supportive of your project, your initiative, your idea, your business. They should challenge opponents when things come up that are against that and be supportive of you and authentically. They would be sharing wins and challenges and helping other people see that it's a great idea, or it's a great project. It might have its challenges, but there are some really good things about it that we can get over the hump. And they want to represent your point of view, the program's point of view, or whoever's point of view is it that's selling the idea. So you really want them to be a proponent of what it is you're doing. And so they're representing that point of view. So that is really the quadrant you want. Now, when you're dealing with influencers and moving them forward, the silent promoter is good too. They probably aren't your influencers though, because think about the influential people and the characteristics we saw earlier. They're kind of quiet. They don't actively engage others. They don't actively share wins. They will support if they're called upon, but they're not visible, right? Some of those characteristics we saw earlier, that's important. They're good people though too to have on projects or be part of it because they're still promoting. Now, on the left side, we're going to talk about this a little bit later. These are kind of your resistors. These are the folks that, struggle with whatever it is, this idea. These folks also might, in the top left quadrant, the vocal detractor, they're probably very influential too, as you can see, but in a negative. So you're really going to want to make sure that your influencers, if they're detractors, how do you get them on board? And so we'll talk about some influencing skills that you can have in your back pocket to help that process along. All right, so I'm going to geek out a little bit on you here, but this is my spreadsheet that I use when I'm doing stakeholder analysis. And I use that assessment tool and I put it in this tool. And once I decide if someone is a promoter, a champion, a silent promoter, a vocal, a champion, if they're a detractor or neutral, I determine that and I list them out on the spreadsheet and I populate this. Now, most people will probably just want their champions in here and they'll want to manage those champions so that they can help influence others. And that's what this course is about. As a change management professional, I also manage a whole bunch outside of that, which is moving people along that curve and making them more supportive over time, or maybe neutral. But for this, in this course, it's strictly about that champion, that vocal supporter, that really influential person that we've got to make sure that's on board. Okay, so then there's a second continuum, and you can really get tactical about this, or at a high level, really it's important to understand that everyone that has high influence, that's interested in what you're doing, you want them on board. If their attitude's positive about the changes or about what you're doing, that's what you want too. Their interest level also has to be and high up there. So we have these dynamics going on that will help you to move it forward based on who you identify. So influence and interest is the second part. So this measures their likelihood of of involvement in the project as well, or your idea. So this is another table. However, it does give you a way to engage those folks based on where they are in their interest level. So if they're highly interested and highly influential, that top right quadrant is very important, right? That is who we're focused on in this class, is that manage closely group. If you notice on the right, they require frequent communication. They require involvement typically. They require, you ask them for their feedback, that they're part of focus groups. So those are the types of things that we map out to keep folks very highly engaged throughout a program or a change that's happening. And if you are a small business owner and you are looking to network with other businesses like we've been talking about, you want to figure out how to do this as well with those businesses that can help you and that you can help them. So we're going to geek out here for a moment. This spreadsheet, going back to it, you can actually put in how influential they are and how interested in your change on a scale of 1 to 10. So we rate them and then we assign them a grid, a place on the grid that you just saw. So manage closely. If you look at Jane, the VP of accounting, who reports to Joe, and she's in Europe. She's highly interested in the project. She's very highly influential, and we're going to engage her very closely on what we're doing, because we want her to be an advocate all the way through and to sell and get people excited about things. Okay, so we've gone through a lot about stakeholders, about identifying those who are highly interested and highly influential and have a good attitude about it. And we have to convince them first, right? Once we work with them and we convince them of what we're doing is good and that it has a lot of benefits and that it can help them, then we can move things forward because they will sell it with us. So influencing skills is what we need. And we talked earlier about it's a teachable, it's learnable, it's something you can practice and get better at. And I will tell you, out of all the influencing approaches that are out there, you'll be surprised at what is the most effective and what is not effective. And I had one that I was using years ago. That was my main go-to that I thought was very much logical. And it actually is not one of the best influencing tactics. It's probably one of the lowest, but I never knew that. So anyway, you will find that this will be very interesting. So let's talk about influence. So at its core, how do you influence others? Well, when you boil it down, here's the ingredients. Building trust, right? And being in relationship with someone is really how you influence. That's a good start. Getting past your own needs enough to care about the success of someone else. And why do I say that? It really just boils down to that. You are going to listen to people that you are in relationship with, or that you know is not out for their own, self, their own self. So if they put others before them, you can build trust with someone. Both of those things, that's where you can influence. And there are different types of influencing. So let's take a look at those. Inspiration. When someone just gets excited about the ideas that you're putting out there and it connects with your values or your ideals or your own aspirations. And that is really one of them. It's amazing. So inspiration is an influencing tactic. Consultations, just like it sounds, I'm going to consult with you. I'm going to ask you for feedback and get your input, and maybe you can help with us move this forward together. Consultation is another one. Rational persuasion. So this is when you just look at it logically. You say, here are the pros, here are the cons. This is the logic behind it. And this is the influential tactic that I have used in the past. Ingratiation, kind of what it sounds like, using flattery to move something forward and influence them. Personal appeal. So this is when you're appealing to someone's sense of loyalty, usually someone that you know, to support you and to do something. I like the way you think, or you connect with them on a level. Can you support me on this? An exchange. So influencing someone to say, you do this for me, and I'll do this for you. Of course, there's pressure, using demands, threats, frequent checking, and persistent reminders, influencing the person to carry out a request. I know we don't like to hear all that, but I'm sure it still happens today. I've seen that. And then legitimizing, so seeking to establish the legitimacy of a request by claiming the authority to make it, or by verifying that it is consistent with organizational policies, rules, and traditions. So you're legitimizing something, saying that we need to do this because this is the way we should do it, and this are the rules by which we live by, so therefore we have to do it. And last on my list is coalition, enlisting the aid or endorsement of other people to influence the person to what you want. So building the coalitions and getting other folks to buy in. So these are the 9 most known influencing tactics there. Which one do you think is most effective? I would say pick your top 2.